The Boston Celtics came into Crypto.com Arena on February 22nd and handed the Los Angeles Lakers a humbling 22-point defeat, a loss that stung even more because it came on a night that was supposed to be a celebration. Just days earlier, the Lakers had unveiled a statue honoring legendary executive Pat Riley outside the arena, marking one of the most emotional moments of the franchise's recent history. But the Celtics quickly turned that festive atmosphere into a cold reality check, dominating from start to finish and reminding everyone in Los Angeles that there is still significant ground to cover before this team can be considered a true championship contender. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates. After the game, Lakers superstar LeBron James met with reporters in the locker room and addressed the loss with the kind of candor that has come to define his public presence over more than 2 decades in the NBA. He spoke about the Celtics' outstanding performance and offered words of genuine praise for Jaylen Brown, who has been nothing short of spectacular during the 2025-26 season. Even with star forward Jason Tatum sidelined due to an Achilles injury, a loss that many expected would derail Boston's season entirely, Brown has stepped up and carried the team to the point where they are now being taken seriously as Eastern Conference title contenders. But in the middle of his thoughtful comments about Brown's brilliance, James could not resist bringing up an old piece of unfinished business. He reached back to the NBA Summer League of 2024 when a video went viral showing Brown seated courtside making candid remarks about Bronny James, LeBron's son and then rookie with the Lakers. In the clip, Brown was heard saying he did not believe Bronny was a professional caliber player and suggested that the only reason he would stay in the NBA was because of his famous last name. The comments spread across social media immediately and sparked significant debate about whether they were fair criticism or disrespectful to a young player still finding his footing at the highest level of the sport. LeBron addressed the incident directly but measured his words carefully. He said the relationship between the two stars has been pretty respectful overall, but made clear that the Summer League moment had not been forgotten. He acknowledged that Brown had later taken to social media to offer some kind of clarification or support for Bronny, and said he appreciated that gesture. But he also added, with a brief pause that spoke volumes, that Bronny still has a long road ahead of him, and that is a separate conversation entirely. The moment revealed something important about LeBron James beyond the basketball court. Despite being one of the most accomplished athletes in human history, a 4-time NBA champion, and a man who has competed at the elite level for well over 2 decades, he remains fiercely protective of his family. The idea that someone would publicly question his son's ability, even in a casual off-camera setting, is something that registers with him on a deeply personal level. And while he is not making a public spectacle of the situation, his comments made it clear that he files these things away and does not simply let them go. Jaylen Brown, for his part, responded to LeBron's high praise with humility and class. The Celtics guard said he considers himself the best two-way player in the world right now, a bold statement that might have drawn criticism in any other context but felt entirely justified given his performances this season. He expressed genuine gratitude for the kind words from someone he described as arguably the greatest player to ever play the game of basketball. Brown said he wakes up every morning feeling grateful and humbled, and those words came across as sincere rather than performative given everything he has accomplished this season while leading Boston through what could have been a franchise-altering injury to its other star. Looking ahead, the big question for Boston is whether Tatum can return before the playoffs begin in April. The Celtics clearly have the talent and the toughness to compete without him, as evidenced by their dominant performance in Los Angeles, but having a fully healthy Tatum back on the floor would transform them into one of the most feared teams in the entire league. Meanwhile, the Lakers under head coach JJ Redick will need to use the remaining weeks of the regular season to sharpen their roster, fix their defensive issues, and find the consistency they need to secure a favorable seeding in the Western Conference playoffs bracket. The rivalry between Boston and Los Angeles is as old and storied as any in professional basketball, stretching back decades and touching generations of fans on both coasts. Moments like this one, where trash talk, personal pride, and elite competition all collide in a single post-game conversation, are exactly what keeps that rivalry alive and burning. LeBron James has not forgotten what Jaylen Brown said about his son, and in this league, nothing fuels greatness quite like a long memory. As the 2025-26 regular season enters its final stretch, the Lakers find themselves at a crossroads. They have enough talent to be dangerous, but questions about depth and consistency have followed the team all year. Head coach JJ Redick continues working to find the right rotations and squeeze the best out of his roster, knowing that every remaining game carries real weight in the standings. The loss to Boston was painful, but if it serves as a wake-up call for the playoff push, it may ultimately prove useful. The Los Angeles Lakers suffered a difficult home defeat at the hands of the Boston Celtics on February 22nd, and in the hours that followed, star guard Luka Doncic spoke openly about what went wrong and what the team needs to change going forward. The game was a frustrating one for Los Angeles from nearly start to finish. The Celtics came in with a clear game plan to apply relentless defensive pressure on the Lakers' ball handlers on every single possession, and executed it with precision. Without true secondary playmakers outside of their core group of stars, the Lakers had no reliable answers when Boston cranked up the pressure, and the result was a night of turnovers, forced shots, and a final score that did not reflect well on the home team. Doncic himself finished with 25 points, which on the surface looks like a reasonable contribution, but the Slovenian superstar was far from satisfied with his own performance or the team's collective effort on the offensive end. He acknowledged plainly that 89 points is simply not enough for a team with championship aspirations, and that the Lakers as a group need to be sharper and more efficient when opponents decide to make life difficult for them. For a team that has positioned itself as a Western Conference contender this season, putting up that kind of point total on your home floor against a division rival is a hard thing to sit with. What Doncic emphasized most forcefully in his post-game remarks was the concept of physicality. In his view, the Celtics did not beat the Lakers simply because they were more talented on that particular night. They beat them because they were more aggressive, more willing to initiate contact, and more committed to setting the physical tone of the game from the opening tip. Boston's defenders grabbed, held, and pressed throughout the entire contest, and the officiating crew largely let both teams play through it. That kind of environment can be uncomfortable for a team that is not prepared to respond in kind, and the Lakers clearly were not. Doncic made clear that the solution is not to complain about referees or wait for calls that may never come. The answer, in his mind, is straightforward. The Lakers need to study how teams like Boston operate on defense and apply those same principles themselves. They need to be willing to get physical on both ends of the court, to match aggression with aggression, and to stop allowing opponents to dictate the terms of engagement. It is a mentality shift as much as a tactical one, and it requires every player on the roster to buy in and embrace a harder, more combative style of play. This is not the first time the Lakers have been exposed in this way during the 2025-26 season. The team has struggled at various points with maintaining defensive energy for full games, and opponents have learned that applying physical pressure early can disrupt Los Angeles' rhythm and force their stars into uncomfortable situations. Doncic, to his credit, is someone who has never shied away from contact. He built his entire offensive game around drawing fouls and finishing through defenders, but even he acknowledged that the team's collective response to Boston's physicality was not good enough on that particular night. The trade deadline came and went without any major moves for Los Angeles. The only transaction the franchise made was a swap that brought in Luke Kennard in exchange for Gabe Vincent, a modest adjustment that did not fundamentally alter the team's roster profile. Doncic was reportedly supportive of the organization's conservative approach at the deadline, understanding the financial and competitive constraints the front office was working within. But there is no question that the team's needs remain real and visible, and the hope is that the group they have can grow together and become tougher and more connected as the regular season winds down. Head coach JJ Redick now has the task of preparing this group for the playoff push with limited time and limited roster flexibility. The lessons from the Celtics loss about physicality, about ball movement under pressure, about defensive commitment will need to be absorbed quickly if the Lakers want to be in a strong position when the postseason begins in April. The talent is there. Whether the toughness follows remains the central question of this Lakers season. The broader context around this team makes Doncic's post-game message even more significant. Since arriving in Los Angeles, he has been the undisputed engine of the offense, a generational playmaker capable of taking over a game with his scoring, passing, and ability to draw contact. But even the best players in the world cannot win playoff basketball games alone. The rest of the roster has to be willing to match the competitive edge that elite teams like Boston bring every single night. Doncic seems to understand this better than anyone, and his candid post-game words were less a criticism of his teammates and more a call to arms for the group as a whole. The message was simple: play harder, play tougher, and stop letting other teams set the tone. If the Lakers can internalize that lesson before April, they may surprise a lot of people come playoff time. With the 2025-26 NBA regular season nearing its conclusion and attention already turning toward what Los Angeles might do to reshape their roster this summer, analysts and insiders are beginning to point the Lakers in a very specific direction. The name generating the most buzz as a potential offseason acquisition is Daniel Gafford, the Dallas Mavericks center whose athleticism, rim protection, and familiarity with Luka Doncic make him a logically appealing target for a franchise still searching for stability at the pivot position. The Lakers' center situation has been a source of frustration and uncertainty for years, and this season has been no different. Last offseason, Los Angeles signed DeAndre Ayton, the former #1 overall pick, in hopes of finally providing the team with a reliable, starting caliber big man. But Ayton's inconsistent performances have raised fresh questions about whether he is truly the right long-term fit for this franchise. ESPN analyst Kevin Pelton has identified the center spot as one of the team's top offseason priorities, suggesting that meaningful changes could come regardless of whether Ayton exercises his $8 million player option for next season. Pelton specifically highlighted Gafford as part of a compelling trade scenario involving the Dallas Mavericks. He noted that Gafford and forward PJ Washington, both of whom played alongside Doncic during Dallas's run to the 2024 NBA Finals, could be sensible trade targets for Los Angeles this summer. The caveat, of course, is that the relationship between the two franchises remains strained following last season's highly controversial trade that sent Doncic to the Lakers in the first place. According to reporting from The Athletic, there is essentially a gigantic road closed sign hanging over the trade relationship between the two organizations at this time, which would make any deal with Dallas complicated to execute regardless of its merits on paper. Still, the basketball case for Gafford is difficult to ignore. Through 40 games this season with the Mavericks, the 27-year-old center has averaged 8.0 points, 6.5 rebounds, 1.0 assists, and 1.3 blocks per game, while shooting an exceptional 62.5% from the field. Those numbers speak to a player who is efficient, physical, and impactful without needing the ball in his hands. He is the kind of center who thrives in a pick-and-roll system, finishing lobs, protecting the rim, and doing the dirty work that allows offensive stars to operate more freely. Given that Doncic's entire offensive game is built around creating off the dribble and drawing defenders, having a big man who knows exactly how to play with him could be enormously valuable. Fadeaway World analyst Nico Martinez echoed Pelton's assessment, describing Gafford as perhaps the safest available option for the Lakers at center. His argument centered on the idea that while Gafford may not be the most glamorous or high-ceiling option available on the market, he offers something that no other center can, a proven track record of success playing alongside Doncic. The two developed real chemistry during their time together in Dallas, and rebuilding that dynamic in Los Angeles could accelerate the development of the Lakers' offense in ways that are genuinely hard to quantify. The contractual situation surrounding Gafford adds another layer of appeal. He is currently in the final year of his previous deal, earning $14.3 million this season. However, he has already agreed to a 3-year extension worth $54.3 million that kicks in next season, paying him $17.2 million in 2026-27 and rising gradually to $18.9 million by 2028-29. For any team acquiring him, that structure represents genuine long-term value. A starting caliber center locked in on a controlled rising deal rather than an expensive short-term stopgap. The competition for Gafford's services could be fierce. NBA reporter Evan Saderi noted that as many as 5 teams were interested in acquiring the center at the trade deadline, and that level of demand is unlikely to disappear heading into the offseason. The Lakers are also expected to explore more ambitious targets, with some reports connecting them to a potential pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo. How aggressively Los Angeles can pursue multiple fronts will depend on cap flexibility, trade assets, and the broader landscape of the offseason market. But one thing seems clear: the center position needs a real answer, and Daniel Gafford is one of the most sensible solutions available. Other names have also surfaced. Pelton mentioned Mitchell Robinson and Robert Williams III as realistic possibilities through free agency or trade. Both offer rim protection and rebounding the Lakers currently lack. However, neither carries the same established chemistry with Doncic that Gafford possesses, and that familiarity factor could become the deciding variable in how Los Angeles prioritizes its search. The offseason window is still months away, but the groundwork is being laid now. For the Lakers, a reliable center who can hold his own defensively, finish around the rim, and play within Doncic's system is not a luxury. It is a necessity, and if the organization can find a way to make a deal for Gafford happen, despite the complicated history between the two franchises, it could prove to be one of the most impactful moves of the entire offseason.